the opening World Cup four-man bobsleigh race of the 2001-2002 World Cup season. Here's Christoph Langen, the 2001 four-man world champion, one of the great veterans in the sport from Germany. Andre Lang, the four-man World Cup champion from last season, a threat on this course as well. Sandis Krusis, one of the great veterans in the sport from Latvia, the runner-up in the World Cup last season in four-man. Todd Hayes, great race on the last race in the two-man, and Christian Reich, who got the pole position and is one of the people to beat. And there is Prince Albert of Monaco, trying to qualify for his 5th Olympic Winter Games. It's a beautiful night in Calgary. The temperature near 9 degrees. Peter Watson, John Morgan with you from Calgary. Welcome to our coverage of the FIBT World Four-Man Cup bobsleigh competition on Speed Vision.
Here's highlights of the first heat, Peter. Competitive field. The Swiss, Martin Annen, was in second place here at the end of the first heat. Real story here in the United States. Again, Todd Hayes, big start times, big finish time. Todd Hayes, the United States in first place.
It's a beautiful night here, 9 degrees Celsius, the temperature. That's about 48 degrees Fahrenheit. And the flags with the flame burning in the background, and a good crowd on hand as you look at the standings after the first run. Led by the United States, Todd Hayes and company, 0.2 of a second ahead of Martin Annen of Switzerland, who won here a year ago.
Quite a star-studded field in that top 10. And again, like yesterday, Hayes on top of the leaderboard again in the first heat. Seems to be a pretty confident athlete at the moment.
Bruno Méjean, former world champion in this event, a former Olympic champion from France. 0.7, nearly 0.8 of a second off the pace, heading into the second heat. As you look towards the start house area at the top of the Canada Olympic Park track, 32 sleds from 18 nations taking part. John, this sport expanding every year. More countries join in, more sleds. It used to be we'd have 15, 20 sleds, and we've got 32 here in this competition tonight.
And the level of athleticism from top to bottom is extraordinary, Peter. The number of years you and I have been coming out here to see the athlete level that it is pretty awesome.
Latvia 2, the first sled down in the second run. There's Pierre Luders from Canada. This is his home track. He's looking for a big season with a new four-man sled.
Rules of the competition, they go 15-1, 15th place to first. Pretty mild temperatures out here, Peter. The ice, though, is the key. The control steel, that's the steel at the top. It's an old runner. The runners of the sleds have to be +3 or -3 according to that runner.
And here are the gentlemen in charge of the competition. Schulte, Wirth, and Thoma, all veterans of the FIBT World Cup circuit.
They're the ones that'll manage the competition.
And you see Christoph Langen with both the start time, 4.95 seconds, and the down time, 54.19 seconds. Those are the track records in Calgary. And Christoph Langen of Germany owns both the first 50-meter start time and the down time.
But with warm conditions, I don't think we'll see either one of those track records jeopardized tonight. But here we go with an onboard camera from Calgary. Almost 1,500 meters in length, used for the 1988 Winter Olympic Games. Calgary is very important to get an awesome start time, and then the athletes must get in the sled with cat-like precision. No movement or mistakes allowed up here. You want to allow the sled to accelerate. Curve forward starts to drop off, 25% gradient. 5, and now 6. Big three-quarter combination, which features Omega. The first 4 Gs of force. Now curve 8, the pivotal part of the track that gives you the ultimate speed. Now a long straightaway. This is maximum speed, over 130 clicks. Now into Kreisel. Another 4 Gs of the pilots. You exit uphill, and here you want to be perfect. Now it's not the guy who drives the most that wins down here. It's the guy who drives the least with the maximum speed. Into the finish. We won't see record times tonight, but it'll be an awesome race because we got pretty good conditions.
That gives you a sense of what it's like here, and you can see a light breeze, about 9 kilometers an hour, and clear skies in Calgary. So pretty good weather for the early part of, or the late part of the fall, rather. And at the top of the course, more of the officials who are in charge of the competition.
These are the guys who threw out the Canadian sled for illegal runners yesterday. These are the guys that take a look at the runners, the length, the height, the width, the temperature. Pretty precise sport, much like auto racing, Peter.
And a good crowd on hand. Not quite NASCAR proportions, but certainly a good crowd watching this four-man competition tonight. 32 sleds from 18 countries. The total component of the four-man competition. Latvia 2, 10th in the World Cup last season, will be the first sled down the track. 15th after the first run. 5.24 seconds their start time for the first 50 meters. So we'll watch that time as it appears on your screen at home and see how it compares.
You know, we talked about in Europe, bobsledding is called the Formula One of winter, Peter. But here in North America, we like to call it the NASCAR winter. If you look at all the logos on this Latvian uniform, you can definitely feel an auto racing presence.
Take the motors out, take the runners, take the wheels off, put runners on. It's still, the objective is still to go fast and drive carefully.
Well, it's not about high octane up here. The octane is human power. And the start, the first 50 meters is the most crucial element in the sport, the modern element of bobsledding right now. The 50 meters, the athleticism here, the power and speed.
The United States in the lead to start round 2. We'll see them in just a few minutes here. This is Latvia 2 on track in Calgary to start heat number 2. 5.22 seconds their time for the first 50 meters. That's 0.02 of a second quicker than they were on the first run.
Well, 5:24 in the first heat, 5:22 in the second heat. Look at the heads. A lot of movement side to side there. I think everything has to go straight ahead. But the athletes have to get into cat-like movements and not alter that sled up top at all, Peter. They want the thing to accelerate.
The quieter the sled, generally speaking, the better the run. If you don't hear them crushing the wall, you know they're doing a good job. And a couple of touches there.
You know, they say noise in this sport is loss of energy. Energy is speed. There's the speed in the bottom. You accelerate out of that Kreisel going uphill a little bit. You take away from 130 to 120 clicks. This is our first guy down the rabbit, so to speak.
55.33 seconds. That's 1/10 of a second slower than the first heat. A combined time for 2 runs of 1 minute 50.56 seconds for Latvia 2. First sled in heat 2.
I think you'll be happy with that heat. Anytime you get close to matching your time for the first run, the track breaks up. It's not as fast. You know, there's a lot of ice conditions that have shaved off the valuable speed elements of the course. There's our rules. 15th place to first, according to your time in the first run, and then they go 16th to the end. We'll be seeing the top 15 competitors here.
Back up to the top of the track as you look into the eyes of pilot Aaron Glass of Holland 1.
Real great start time in the first heat, Peter, coached by Tom Delahunty, the former 4-time Olympian from Britain. And he's got these guys pushing the sled well. 5:09 start is probably the most competitive start I've ever seen out of Aaron Glass.
Big guys on the back of this sled. They can generate a lot of power in the first 50 meters. Let's see how they do here as they go for their second run in this four-man World Cup race.
Anything around 5:10, 5:11 is what you expect out of good bobsled pushing teams here. Consistency is important. 5:09, I tell you, the Dutch have been practicing over the summer. Tom Delahunty has got these guys at a precision form. When you match your start time from the first heat, that means you got a chance to be on the podium. Especially as competitive as that, Peter. He used to be up in the 20s in the last year, which made him no chance to medal at the battle.
Latvia 2's time, the time to beat here in the second heat of competition. The Dutch time on the bottom.
Oh, he's got a big lead now. We had 300s at the top, 1600s now. He's got bigger speed than the Latvians had. The exit here is going to be crucial. It's a slingshot effect out of the bottom part of that Kreisel. And he's got a pretty good slingshot going here, Peter. Lost a little time back there, -11. He should be on leader, probably -5 or 6.
Across the line in 55.28 seconds, 0.08 of a second quicker than Latvia 2. And Holland 1 moves into the lead, 1 minute 50.48 seconds, the time for 2 runs.
He's happy with his time. It was a very clean ride down the track. Watch the head slapping here. There's big pressure points. Such a minute amount of steering. It's not the guy who drives the most that wins. It's the guy who drives the least. You'd be awed about how little steering on these big machines gets these things down the track perfectly.
So Holland 1 in the lead in this second heat of competition. Again, 1 minute 50.48 seconds, the time for 2 runs, and the standard to beat as we look back up towards the top of the course here at Canada Olympic Park on the west side of Calgary. This track, one of the many Olympic legacies from 1988. Russia 2 with Alexander Zubkov at the controls. Next up on the track, 5.03 seconds. Outstanding start time in the first 50 meters in heat number 1.
The Russians about 3 years ago were at the bottom of the heat. They brought all these track and field athletes in. These guys hit everything in sight the first couple years. Now they're starting to understand how to drive the track. But most importantly, boy, are they awesome athletes up here in this first 50 meters.
Well, they're great athletes, John, and one of the things that appeals to me about them is the fact that Russia and Latvia and Romania and Slovakia and some of these countries don't have the financial resources like the North Americans do, and yet they still manage to compete and they still manage to do well. 0.03 of a second slower off the start than Heat 1, but 5.06 seconds is still an excellent start time.
Well, there's plenty of capitalism in the Russian program, Peter. Take a look at all the logos on that sled. I think that they win the award for most sponsors. Believe me, the Russians are well-funded, and it's because they got a very good marketing guy, their coach Valerie. He has really raised some good money for this team. And listen, they're at the top of their game. Awesome start times. They got good equipment. And in Salt Lake, Peter, it's all about a start. It's a shorter track than Calgary. These guys got a big start. They could surprise in Salt Lake. 300s at the top of the track separated. Now they got it to 5. Boy, this is going to be right to the 100, Peter. This is close. Big speed in the bottom. Either way.
Across the line in 55.30 seconds, 100th of a second quicker than the previous leader. So the Russians move to the front at 1 minute 50.47 seconds, 1/100th of a second quicker than Holland 1.
Length of a fingernail in 2 miles of distance. Boy, is that a heartbreaker for the Dutch. The Russians, though, won that placing with a superior start time. 700's better than the Dutch on top. And the exit here of the Kreisel. Look at the heads. This is 4 G's of force, forcing your body down to the bottom of the sled. Your head gets pounded down there sometimes. Look at the way it bounces. Geez, good drive. Look at the speeds. Glass had better speed. The Latvian tied Aaron Glass. The Dutch or the Russians didn't have as good a speed, but they're atop of the leaderboard with that superior start time.
Bruno Thomas, the pilot of French sled number 2, ready at the top of the course. 5.20 seconds, the start time in the first heat for this crew, which was 20th on the World Cup circuit overall 1 season ago.
He had a 5:20 start time in the first heat. That means he gave up 1,700s to the Russians in the first heat. We say there's a multiplier effect of 3 times at the bottom. That means he gave up over a half second of time and still beat the Russians at the bottom by a mere 700ths of a second. He's got to be perfect here again. I mean, if this guy gets to the bottom of the lead, this tells you how good a driver this French pilot is, Peter.
5.19 seconds, the time for the first 50 meters, 1/100th of a second quicker than his time for the same distance in the first run.
Bruno Thomas came out of the World Championships last year with a pretty good placing. He's coming on. You know, bobsled drivers are born, and then you develop the skill. This guy's got that eye-hand coordination skill. If he can find a start time, this kid a couple of years from now is going to be a good pilot. Look at that, Peter. He's only got it to 100 now. Remember, he was 1,700ths behind at the start on the Russians. He's already overcome the deficient start time. Let's see what the clock is here. Look, he's already in the lead. This guy has got some magic eyes and hands, and he's something to look at in the future.
Coming to the bottom of the course, 128 kilometers an hour is speed, 55.24 seconds the time for Bruno Thomas in the French number 2 sled.
Wow.
And the new leader, 1 minute 50.34 seconds for France 2, the new leaders in the 4-man competition of the World Cup competition from Calgary.
Magical eyes and hands this Bruno Thomas possesses. Look at the speed shot. Now look at the exit of curve 8. You need a perfect exit here. You see any runner spray coming off them runners? Not. This sled was motoring down that straight. Look at the speed. Look at the standings there. He's got the lead by a lot, considering the deficient start time. Give him that type of start, he'd be pretty unstoppable. And he knows it too. His teammates are congratulating him.
That's the French number 2 sled. And we go back to the start for one of the great veterans in the sport as well. Bruno Migion from France, driving the French number 1 sled with his team, Eric Lechanoy, Phil Capio, and Alexander Arbez.
Pretty big dudes on this sled, Peter. Big boys.
Yes, they are. Their time in the first heat, 5.18 seconds. Off the first 50 meters, they were 11th in the competition after the first heat.
One of the best eye-hand coordinated drivers in the world right here. Lacks the start time. He won a bronze medal at the 98 games at Nagano. He won a world championship in 99 in Cortina. Magical eyes and hands, but he suffers up top in the first 50 meters. That means he can make no mistakes driving the sled down below, Peter. You give up that type of time up here, you got to be perfect in the next 1,400 meters.
He's actually 100th of a second quicker for the first 50 meters than he was in the first heat. But John, you're right. Hundredths of a second measure first and second and third in this sport. And he cannot afford to lose any more time in driving down this track.
He's going to have a perfect exit. Look, he went from -2 to +3, 125.2. Not as much speed as Bruno Thomas. I don't think Bruno Thomas has ever beat Bruno Mignon. The French don't want this to happen. The French are in the winner's box. The French number 1 team's coming down. I think this is going to be shocking if Thomas wins, and he does by 800ths. Look, they're embarrassed to beat him. Look at the French coaching staff.
55.34 seconds, the running time for Mignon, and 1 minute 50.42 seconds, 800ths of a second slower than the French number 2 sled.
Let me tell you, this is not the way the French coaching staff wanted this result. Not in the first event of the season. Bad drive down below. Here's the speed shot. Remember, we had the same shot with Bruno Thomas. Looking for spray off the runners. Look at the skid he's got coming around the back. That's where he lost his time, Peter. We saw some speed. There's the speed. Look at Thomas's speed. Look at that, and look at Mignon. 4/10ths slower than his countrymen. And this is a guy that usually dominates the speed up and down the track.
Well, we go back to the top of the track now for Canada 1. Pierre Lueders, the Hindle twins, Matt and Ben, and Pascal Caron will push this sled 16th in the World Cup last year. Disappointing results in the 4-man for Lueders, who has a new sled, new runners, and the determination to improve in the 4-man competition. It is really his big goal this year, both in the World Cup and in the Olympic Winter Games coming up in February in Salt Lake City. 5.06 seconds was the start time in the first heat for Canada 1. And away they go in heat number 2.
He's got the 2 Hindle twins, Pascal Caron on the back. Hey, great start, 5:06 in the first heat, 5:06 in the second heat. Remember, Ken LeBlanc is their normal teammate. He's hurt, and they brought Pascal Caron off the bench. Great start time by this 4 Canadians here. I'm impressed. This is not the number 1 team, but for these guys to do 5:06, that's impressive. Now the impressive is they need a good drive.
Well, Lueders pretty smooth so far. Let's check this. Look, more than 3/10ths of a second ahead of the current leaders, France number 2. Terrific performance to this point by Canada 1.
Oh, and big speed all the way down the track. Pierre Lueders, he's got a home run going here. He's absolutely clean. 3/10. That's an enormous amount of time from one sled to another here, Peter. He's our leader.
55.03 seconds. The Canadian team applauds. 1 minute 50.07. The running time for 2 heats for Canada 1. And Pierre Lueders, Ben Hindle, Matt Hindle, and Pascal Caron move into the lead in the World Cup 4-man race in Calgary.
I tell you, that's what they expect out of Pierre Lueders. That's why you got that big scream out of his coach, Ivo Ferriani. This is the bottom part of the track. Look at this sled, smooth. You wouldn't believe how little steering Lueders did to get through there perfectly. There's the standings.
Nearly 3/10ths of a second in front of the French number 2 sled.
And Pierre knows it. When Pierre drives well, he's excited. When he doesn't drive well, you can tell in his reaction as he comes out of that sled, he doesn't hide it.
But there are still some good sleds to come down the track here in Calgary. And one of them is driven by Wolfgang Stupfer in Austria 1, 5.17 seconds. Running time in the first 50 meters in heat number 1.
It's got 500ths lead on Looters at the bottom. The Austrians are driving a Dresden-built sled. Dresden's the old East German airplane factory who used to build MiGs and also now adapted to building bobsleds. I'd say 40% of the sleds in the field have Dresden-type chassis, modified usually by the pilots.
Austria won 9th after the first heat, 5.17 seconds, the running time for the first 50 meters. Let's compare that number as we start here, 5.18, so just 100th of a second slower in heat number 2.
Well, it doesn't matter what type of chassis, what type of sled you got. If you don't have this human propulsion at the top of the track, you can't be fast at the bottom. He's given up a lot of time here. He's got to be perfect in the next 1,200 meters here to have a chance to be at the top of the leaderboard ahead of Lewis. Looks pretty clean here, Peter. He's an Omega there. Now in the 8. Need this exit here. Look at the rudder tips. Pretty good. He's 20 hundredths down. Doesn't have any type of speed compared to Looters. Looters got 0.2 of a second out of here. He's got better speed than Looters there. Now down to 16, but it's not going to be enough. He's driving great. He lost all that time in the first 50 meters, Peter.
Good speed as he crosses the finish line, but not quite as quick as Canada 1, 55.23 seconds. 1 minute 50.22 seconds for 2 runs. So Austria 1, 0.15 of a second behind Canada 1 at this point in the competition.
Considering that drive down the track, his coach Gerhard Rayner was impressed. Considering that start time, I mean, his drive was great, his start time lacked. Climbs high there. This is in 6, 7, and 8. 7 is the Omega corner. Look at the transition. This is the first time the athletes feel that 4 Gs.
So Canada 1, Pascal Caron there on the right. Pierre Luter's just pulling on the warm-up suit. And the Hindle twins. And I defy you to tell me which one is which. Ben and Matt are the 2 names. And we go back to the top of the course for Germany number 3 sled. Matthias Benisch, the pilot, Torsten Voss, Ludo Lehmann, and Alexander Jelik are the crew members.
Yeah, great track and field athletes on this sled. They used to all be part of the Harold Schodai, the great German pilot who's retired. They picked up a ride with Matthias Benisch, who's been around for a long time. Very well-liked person on the circuit, Matthias Benisch. Start time 5:18. They give up a little time here at the top, but boy, this is one of them German pilots. Every German pilot, besides usually having a good start, awesome equipment. Great tracks.
500ths of a second slower than their first time for 50 meters in heat number 1.
He's only got a limited amount of time here, 600ths to play on Luter's. Boy, he's going to have to be perfect here, and he's not. Now it's up to 2100ths. 126 kilometers, the type of speed that is what you want. He doesn't have it. He's clean there, 119. Luter's, I think, got 120. He's got it down to 20. Same thing again. He got buried in the first 50 meters. He's driving well. Luter's beat him at the first 50 meters, and that's why Luter's will beat him at the bottom.
55.29 seconds, the running time for Germany 3. 1 minute 50.27 seconds. The time for 2 runs, but that's 0.2 of a second slower than the Canada 1 sled, which continues to lead in this competition.
Well, it's all about start time. You know, the drive down was great. Look at the speed shot. Now, he's a little high there. He's above that shadow. Anytime you're above that shadow, it's too high, which causes him to get over on the right side. Look at the rudder tips. Look at the spray. That's a lot of time in a place where you got to be perfect. That's your acceleration point of the track. The pivotal part of the course is right there, and he made a mistake in it.
1 minute 50.07 seconds, the running time to beat here. That's a time for 2 runs. And back up at the top of the course, the great veteran Sandis Krusis and his team from Latvia, ready to compete in heat number 2 in Calgary.
Prūsis used to compete for the Russian program in the late 80s. The Latvians did. Awesome. Great pilot. He's like German Young, Gunter Huber, one of the best pilots in the world. Gets up a little time at the start. On the tough tracks like Cortina, Lake Placid, where the driving skills are more important, this guy will be at the top of the leaderboard. Here in Calgary, Peter, as we talk about, the 50 meters is everything.
5.15 seconds, the time for the first 50 meters in the first heat for Latvia 1. Let's see if they can better that here in heat number 2.
He's got a 1300s lead on Pierre Lueders in Canada at the bottom. He's going to give up some time here. Going to be in the mid-teens. Oh, a good start for them. 300's better than the first heat. Boy, they're going to need every 100. Like I said, 100 at the top of the track is equal to 3 at the bottom. They just gave up to the Canadian 6 there, so he's got an 1800s deficiency he has to overcome. But boy, we talked about his skills. He's one of these guys that possesses these eye-hand coordinated skills.
And he's one of the more experienced drivers on this track. He's raced here before and done pretty well.
Do it in his sleep. Look how clean he came out of that. -5 to -4. He's got that magic 126 kilometer speed. Ended at around 119 here. It's going to be, look at that. Whoa, 121. You talk about letting the sled run. This is how to do it. Back up to -12. This is how to drive. If you wonder how to do it, this guy knows how to do it on this track. Look at the speed, 130 at the bottom. Awesome.
54.95 seconds, the running time in the second heat. The new leaders, Latvia 1 minute 49.86 seconds. That's 21 hundredths of a second quicker than the Canada 1 sled, which had led up to this point.
Accelerated all the way down. -5, -6 at the top of the track. He ended up at -21. That is about driving. Look at him here. Look at the heads. If you see the heads going back and forth, that's when he's steering. The heads are bouncing forward. That's the G-forces forcing the heads into the bottom part of the pan. Look at this sled come clean. Oh, this is a pilot right here, Peter. Speeds out of the Kreisel. Look at Prūsis. Better than the French guy who we talked about, had a great run. Glass, one of the early runners, took advantage of it. Look at his eyes. He knows. That's his signature little flap with the hands. Another day at the office for him.
Great run by Latvia 1 in first place now in the competition. Back to the top of the track we go for Andre Lang, yet another of the German crews in this competition. First in the World Cup last season. Lars Berendt, Kevin Kuska, and Karsten Embach are the other members of Germany 2. 5.09 seconds, their start time for the first 50 meters in heat number 1. So we'll compare what they do here with what they did a little while ago and see if they can close ground on the leaders in this competition.
Well, our buddy Prūsis at the bottom knows that Long A's got a 1900s lead right off the bat. And Long A's probably going to have a 5:10, 5:11 start time, which is going to increase the lead. So he's got to hope for Long A to make a major mistake. And this is a former world champion. I don't know about world champions making mistakes. Now it's up to 24. Look at that, 5:07.
Excellent time, 5.07 seconds, the time of the first 50 meters for Germany 2.
Looks like he stumbled a little bit at the start as he hit the bar. That's the driver, Andre Lange. Another one of these East Germans coming. We're going to see him for a few more years. His first event on this track in 1997. First World Cup of his life, he won. Look at that exit. -27 to -26. Doesn't have the speed that we saw Prūsis have, but boy, he's got a lot of time in the bank. He's got 120.8. Prūsis had 121. Now it's down to 24. I think the Latvians are gone. I think this is our new leader. Look at that speed here to finish. Oh, yeah.
54.89 seconds, the time for the second heat for Germany 2. 1 minute 49.61 seconds, the running time for 2 heats. And the new leaders are Germany 2 with that running time, which is 25 hundredths of a second quicker than the previous sled that came down, driven by Sandis Prūsis, and that was Latvia 1. So Germany 2 with Andre Lange in the lead here in Calgary.
Replay here into the finish corner. Real rough transition here. Watch the head snap. Tell me this doesn't hurt. I'm telling you, you got to be in shape to do this. That's some rib cage. You ride the back of that sledge, you get beat up, especially way in the back. Look at the speeds. He had the best speed. Prūsis tied him. Guts, one of the early Latvians. did match some good speeds down here in the finish, Peter, almost 80+ miles an hour.
Back up to the top of the course, we meet the crew from Russia 1. Evgeny Popov is the pilot. Fyodor Makarchuk, Sergei Golovitz, and Alexei Andrinin are the other members of this crew. 5.06 seconds was their start time. In heat number 1, they were 5th after the first round of competition.
Nice job with those names, Peter.
Thank you very much. Who's going to know that I'm wrong?
There's Lange in the leader's box. Look at the size of these guys. You think there's any athleticism in those 4 guys right there?
A lot of time in the gym.
Power sprinters. These guys here, all 4 of them are sprinters. My favorite description of a good bobsled athlete is give me the decathletes. Decathletes always take a beating. With the 10th event of the decathlon, you always see them taped up when they run the mile. Bobsled, this is the first event of the year. Everybody's pretty fresh. Look at the explosion off the start. But late in the season, these guys got hamstrings, groins, calves, and they're sick, they got flu. Just like a decathlon, this is a long race to the Olympics. What you see now, right now, what you're going to see in Salt Lake.
Russia 1 with a start time of 5.04 seconds, 200ths of a second quicker than the first heat. So doing well off the line. Let's see how they do as they drive down this nearly 1,500-meter course, leading by just over a 10th of a second in good speed.
Yeah, not as good a speed as we've seen the previous German and Latvian sled, but might be enough. 11. The next one's going to be the key. Ooh, 11 to 6. This is going to be tight. He needs 130 kilometers on your left. Let's see what he's got. He doesn't have 130 kilometers. It's going to be 100 either way. +2, he lost it at the bottom. Germans know it.
54.96 seconds the running time for the second heat. 1 minute 49.63 the running time for 2 heats. That's 200ths of a second slower than Germany 2, which continues to lead in the competition.
2 fingernails he lost that by. Here's the speed shot. Look at the exit and transition here. Look for runner tip spray. You see any runners? You got a little skid going in the back. Pretty straight there. The best sled, you can see the runners adjusting a little bit. That little tinkering there is what cost him those 200s that he lost by. There's the speed into the Kreisel. You pop off at the second best speed there, but he didn't have the speed in the finish corner. That's why he lost by 200s.
So Germany 2 continues to lead. We go back to the top of the Canada Olympic Park course. For a guy who takes up better than a page in any media guide you want to write about the sport of bobsleigh. Christoph Langen in the foreground with his crew, Sven Ruhr, Peter Eisenwein, and Thomas Platzer. Platzer and Langen were together in the 2-man race earlier in the competition. And now they join 2 other colleagues, and the 4 of them. We'll see what they can do here in Heat 2. They were 4th after the first heat. Best push time so far today was 5.10 seconds by this crew.
Eisenwein in the back is one of his first races ever. He's a decathlon, he's a javelin thrower, discus thrower out of Germany, top 5, 6 in the country. And 2 of Langen's top guys are home, resting. Langen's already qualified for the Olympic team. This guy could win double gold if he's healthy in Salt Lake. He's approaching 40 years old, Peter. Hamstrings, groins, it's a long season.
He'll be 40 just after the Olympic Winter Games in Salt Lake City in February.
He's got 600s lead on his countryman at the bottom, Andre Lange. That's down to 300s. He's got that magic 126 kilometer speed. We're going to see over 120 here. 121, second best speed there. So if he approaches 130 kilometers, he'll be our leader down here. It's at 6, 130 kilometers, look toward the left. Doesn't have it, he might lose a couple hundreds back, it should be close. There, 105, he's the leader. Didn't have 130 kilometers of speed, but had enough in the bank to take the lead.
54.90 seconds the running time for his heat. 1 minute 49.56 seconds the running time for 2 events. And the Christoph Langen driven sled, Germany 1 in the lead in the 4-man competition here in Calgary.
Just another yawner for him. He just, take his helmet off, nonchalant. 6, 7, and 8, climbing at 6. Look at the transition. Look at the heads. Very smooth transition. Little heads rocking there. He's a little high, climbing up. Really too high there. Yeah, silver medal last night. See what happens tonight. He's the leader.
Germany won with the lead here in Calgary as we wind down towards the finish of the second heat of competition. Switzerland 2 next on the track. Christian Reich at the controls. Urs Eberhardt, Guido Acklin, and Dominic Miller with him in this sled. They'll push it. He'll drive it. 5.10 seconds the start time in the first heat.
So only got a 400 lead on the Germans at the bottom. They had similar start times, 5:10. They each had in the first heat. Single digits here. He needs a single digit start time. I think the challenge longer at the bottom.
Well, he got the single digit start time you were talking about, John. 5.09 seconds.
Swiss precision timing, Swiss precision starts. Look at Acklin on the left side. 6'7" that guy is. I don't know how he gets in. When he gets in, it's down with aerodynamic position behind the driver.
And nearly a tenth of a second ahead of the leaders at this point.
Good transition there. Speed's going to be the key. We're going to need 126 kilometers out of him. Doesn't have it. In fact, on a lesser speed there, Peter. He's going to have a high 120 speed here to have a chance. He's got it. So now, let the sled fly. Don't steer. Oh, but he's down to only one. 130 clicks to have a chance. Doesn't have it. I think Longa's going to get him. 200s.
54.96 seconds by 2/100ths of a second. He is second to the German #1 sled. 1:49.56 for Longen, now 1:49.58, the time for two heats for Christian Reich in Switzerland 2. So it is Germany 1, #1 at this point, Switzerland 2, #2.
There he is in 8, really low, or in the finish corner. Let's look for the transition here. Look at him duck his head. Let's see if he ducks his head in here. Look at that. Tries to duck his head. The sled rotates around there. Let's see if they give us the speeds. Long A with the best. Proust is second best. Long at third. You don't see Reich up there in the top 3. Look at the coaches. Oh! 200s. That's the length of 2 fingernails in 2 miles. There's our leader.
Germany 1 with Longen second from the right. Watching a monitor here, watching the performance of their fellow competitors, and we go back to the top for Switzerland 1, Marty Annan and his crew with the best start time so far in the competition. The only one below 5 seconds, 4.99. That's 400ths of a second off the track record for the first 50 meters held by Christoph Longen. Annan with Silvio Schaffelberger, Biet Hefti, and Cedric Grand in Switzerland 1.
The Germans are big, all of them. Look like awesome athletes, look like they're in the gym. The Swiss don't have that athletic look, but boy, they possess some kind of cohesion at the start. It's almost like a choreographed dance team. They all get in the sled perfectly. Look at the start, 5:01.
200ths of a second slower than the first heat, but still very much world class. Switzerland 1.
Look at the feet all coming down at the same time. They get in the sled earlier than anybody. They get in the cat-like movements, get down for a perfect aerodynamic position, but he bumped there. That bump right there is crucial. The next clock will tell. I don't know if he's going to be able to get 126 clicks. Is what you're going to need to be atop the leaderboard. Oh, that's a little late there. He's got a minus. Look at that lead. He's got 2,500ths of a second lead. He's only got 125 click speed. This is a little puzzling to me. Now it's down to 12. So we'll see if those bumps, he might have enough here. Look at the speed, nowhere near 130, look out.
Across the line,
Did he?
55.04 seconds. Switzerland 1 and Germany 1 tied with 1 minute 49.56 second clockings for the two runs. So a tie at this point, Germany 1 and Switzerland 1. Tied for first place in the 4-man race in Calgary.
Well, they're either going to get gold or they're going to get silver. But that was not a good drive down the track. He was pretty sloppy at the top. Here he is in curve 8. Look how high he gets into the shadows. Now watch for the rudder tips here. We're looking for spray. Now he's pretty straight there, but boy, he had no speed. Drifts over to that left-hand wall. He had no speed. There's the speed, 126 those teams had. He only had 125 clicks. He had a 2,500 lead there, Peter, and he lost it at the bottom half of the track. But he's still guaranteed at least a silver medal. It wasn't that bad a trip.
Martin Annan, Christoph Longen, Switzerland 1 and Germany 1 respectively. Back up to the top of the track to see what this amazing team from the United States can do. Todd Hayes, the pilot, Randall Jones, Pavel Jovanovic, and Garrett Hines in USA 1. 5.01 seconds, the clocking for the first 50 meters in heat number 1. The United States, the leaders in the competition after the first run.
Peter, they got a lot of time in the bank. 21 hundredths of a second. That's an eternity of time of this track with that type of start time. 5:01, 5:01. You got to be consistent in this sport. It's precision. It's about hundredths of seconds. You can't be 2 or 3 hundredths deficient on the second run from the first. 5:01, 5:01 tells you how much time you spent in the ice house up here in Calgary practicing this 50-meter start time.
They came up here after the end of the last season, spent a good part of the summer working out in the new ice house in Calgary, a $4 million construction by the Calgary Olympic Development Association that allows all fighting sports to practice the first 50 meters of the race.
Wow, unbelievable. 5/10 of a second. Where did he get that time from? 21, that's unbelievable. I'm shocked. He's up to 60. This is a sport that usually separates the top 5 guys by 10 hundredths. He's going to do it by half a second. Wow.
54.68 seconds in that run for the USA 1 sled. 1 minute 48.59 seconds for 2, and an astounding 57 hundredths of a second lead over Germany 1 and Switzerland 1. Terrific performance by USA 1 and the pilot Todd Hayes, who drove about as well as you can drive this track after the start.
Going back to last year's 4-man event, he's won 3 straight World Cup events. Wow. And for you auto racing enthusiasts, this is a brand new Bodine, Jeff Bodine designed sled. It's got 20 trips underneath it. And boy, did this sled motor tonight. The Bodine program's been in place since 1993. And to be at this successful stage now, the United States has won the last 3 bobsled World Cup events dating back to the Lake Placid World Cup last year. Great start times. They could have done it without that. Experience. Todd Hayes seems to be coming into his own. But boy, Jeff Bodine and Bob Cuneo, that whole Frank Briglia, that whole Bodine crew out of Chassis Dynamics, congratulations. I think they finally got the properly tuned machine to produce medals out here in World Cup bobsleigh. We mentioned before, this is the NASCAR winner. Here's the results. Look at that, unbelievable. Over 5/10 of a second. There's the gold medalist, Germany 1 is, from the 1998 Winter Olympic Games. Hayes beat him by 5/10. Martin Annan, same thing. Reich, he was 5th at the Olympics. Andre Lange, world champion in 2000. Popov, the Russian. Luder slipped to 8th, the Canadian. Benish, the German, way down in 10th. That's a surprise. Strong field out here. There was nobody missing in this field. Bruno Thomas, that French guy. Remember his name. Mignon, his countryman, slipped to 12th. That's a big surprise. Awesome result by USA 1, driven by Todd Hayes, Del Rio, Texas. My colleague Peter Watts is standing by.
Real good start times tonight. That must have been a very big key for you.
Martin, sehr gute Startzeiten heute Nacht. Das war ein wichtiger Schritt für dich.
Ja, diese guten Startzeiten brauchte ich heute auch, sonst wäre ich ein bisschen weiter hinten.
Yes, I needed this good start time today because otherwise I would have been behind more.
How do you feel you did driving this track?
Wie hast du das Gefühl, die Bahn zu fahren?
Ja, es ist sonst eine Bahn, die mir sehr gut gefällt, aber heute war ich nicht ganz zufrieden mit meinen Fahrten.
Well, normally it's a track which I like very much, but today I was not satisfied with my driving.
So there is something to work on for future races as you get closer to the Olympics.
Also gibt es etwas, an dem du arbeiten musst für die zukünftigen Rennen, je näher du an die Olympischen Spiele kommst?
Ja, das auf jeden Fall.
Yes, that's for sure.
Okay. Christoph, congratulations. Terrific performance once again on this track.
Christoph, herzlichen Glückwunsch. Hervorragende Show hier wieder mal.
Ja, ich bin jetzt noch glücklich, dass wir Zweiter geworden sind. Die erste Fahrt war nicht gut von mir, vom Fahren her. Aber wir müssen auch noch sehr hart an unserem Start arbeiten.
Yes, I'm happy that I made it to the second place. I was not satisfied with my driving for the first heat, and we definitely have to work on our start.
What is the goal for you this year? Do you hope you can medal at the Olympics in both the 2-man and the 4-man, or will you concentrate on one sled or the other?
Was ist dein Ziel für dieses Jahr? Hoffst du in beiden Disziplinen bei den Olympischen Spielen eine Medaille zu machen oder konzentrierst du dich auf eine Disziplin?
Nein, ich konzentriere mich nicht auf eine Disziplin wie eigentlich der Rest der Welt, sondern ich will Zweier und Vierer fahren und dort auch eine Medaille machen. Ganz klares Ziel von mir.
No, I'm not concentrating on just one type of sled. I'm like the rest of the world. I'm trying to make a medal in both.
Congratulations. Good luck in the rest of the way and in Salt Lake City for sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mike, very much. Great. Okay, we're getting him. Hang on. Where's Todd?
Right here, guys. Come on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do extra stuff so that it's easier for you. And hopefully they'll get your motivation.
Let me know. Well, congratulations to you and your crew. A two-man gold and now the four. It's been a while since the U.S. doubled in Calgary.
I tell you what, yeah, it's been a while. You know, we medaled in Placid, and everyone kind of thought that was a fluke, and we wanted to come out here and try to prove them wrong, and we did that tonight.
Good push by your crew.
Oh, absolutely great push. You know, I can always count on these guys for a big-time push, especially in a big-time race. We came out and laid down to start, and we got it down okay, and didn't crash, so we made it.
The air temperature here tonight pretty warm. How did the track hold up between the first and second heats?
You know, it was hard to say. I thought it was falling apart there, and we got a little nervous. You know, it fell off about 3/10, I'd say 3/4. So I was getting nervous as the sled started slowing down towards the end. I didn't know what to expect, so I knew we had to lay down a great trip, and I think we did.
Want to introduce the rest of your crew for me, just so we acknowledge that this is a team sport?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not a team sport, it's a push sport, and that's what these guys do best. Oh, yeah. This is Randy Jones, this is Garrett Hines, this is Pavle Jovanovic.
How long you guys been together as a crew?
We've been at 2 years now. This will be our second year. You know, we've been working real hard all summer, and I hope that we can carry this momentum into the games.
I think you made a big statement to the bobsleigh world with your performance in Calgary in both events.
Well, I hope so. You know, I know these guys aren't too intimidated. They know the big shows in February, and we got to be ready for that, and hopefully we can carry on the momentum.
Congratulations. Well done.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We roll.
What a performance by USA 1.
Congratulations.
Todd
Well done.
Hayes.
Thank you.
Pretty shocking. The rest of the world now knows that the United States is definitely a threat to win its first Olympic medal since the 1956 Olympic Games at Cortina. It's been a long drought. Maybe it's time for it to come to an end. For Peter Watts, I'm John Morgan. Thanks for watching on Speed Vision.